Шановні колеги, ми продовжуємо цикл брифінгів.
Esteemed colleagues, we continue on the cycle of briefings for the first anniversary, dedicated to the first anniversary of Maidan. So the topic is from EuroMaidan into ATO, Ukraine after Maidan, through the eyes of volunteer battalions. We can see Igor Gorchik at a battalion fight the 4th company, Sam Arsayev, Mykola Yakubovich, the 20th Sotnya, Maidan self-defense of the founders, one of the founders of Donbass battalion, so Miroslav, high volunteer. Hello, I'm Miroslav Guy. It's to me, I'm from the piece ago. Till recently, I was the 1st Reserve Battalion of the National Guard. I'm a volunteer now in the Maidan. I was in the 3rd company of self-defense. Lived in the Maidan since the event of Nigoyan's death and Sergei Nigoyan's death. And I would like to thank Visnik, our brother from the 3rd Sotnya, for the invitation. I can express my personal opinion on the situation in Ukraine. This is a difficult situation. My fund is traveling all the front line, delivering assistance to our fighters. I think that Maidan reached the goal. We changed the power, and we signed the association agreement. Nobody said that it was going to be easy. My brothers, people of all ages, different social strata, and people who were in the Maidan directly during the dramatic events realized that it was going to be difficult, and that the economic difficulties would be fast in coming, and the devaluation of our currency. We expected that. We cannot have everything overnight. Democracy, in my opinion, is the lifelong experience and eternal process. So we have to keep trying and keep pushing for it. We're helping the combatants, the refugees from the ATO area, and we will, I'm sure, reconstruct the Donbass. We will do that because it's our life, it's our territory. On my own behalf, I would like to wish you good work. And as to our authorities of today and their actions, there are many claims being voiced by the volunteer battalions, also people on the front line sometimes do not understand the situation because they're cut from all the world. There's no communication sometimes. And many people keep asking me as a volunteer what the state is providing. In my opinion, my state is myself. As French king once said, Louis, and it's us in our situation. It's you, it's me, it's us. And we have to ask ourselves about it. Of course, civic initiatives, volunteer organizations, the society, the public have to monitor actions of people in the parliament or in the government, for the matter, the presidential administration, and control. This is a normal way. We are just not used to it. This is a normal thing for any developed country, and we have to remember that it's all in our capable hands. And we are a young nation, we are a young civil society, and we had the election with only 30% of turn up. So people sometimes do not understand that there's somebody up there. No, it's not us. If we want more, we have to work, we have to be persistent. So, somebody else, please. Hello, I'm from ATO battalion. I'm deployed at Shastia. I'm on a business trip in Kiev doing some things here, performing some functions. I would like to say that the purpose of the Maidan has not been implemented. The authorities haven't changed as far as I can see from the results of our election. The same people who were there before the events. I think we are not capable of getting together.
Карта Майдану.
I can see the map of the Maidan. I have it here. This is the illustration of our division by towns, by regions of Ukraine. And our efforts to unite the Maidan were fruitless, and the party of power, the ruling party, regulated quite skillfully all the process from the podium, from the stage, and on the 20th, that there was some decisive, spontaneous breakthrough. Otherwise, we would still have Yanukovych around. So we have to be very persistent in changing the structure of power of the authorities. First of all, back in 2011, we published that, and we are using people's purging in our practice. We outlined the mechanism, presented it, but nobody utilizes. We have the anti-constitutional law on purging, and with that, we can destroy those people who are not convenient for the new people in power. In 2006, we published that law on the system press, the proportionate rating system of voting. Experts, not the masses, so to speak, or not the journalists who are not qualified. Everyone is talking about the open lists, open party lists. Nobody is doing anything. This is the imitation open list that we had this year. Some drafts with similarly open lists. This is all fake. We can give it for free to any party. So this system, this press system, is available in some countries. It's used, and we can directly revoke MPs. Many people talk about that, are talking about it, suggesting it, but with Svoboda, it was just primitive trick. We heard about purge and an open list and the withdrawal of MPs. If we don't do that, we won't be able to change anything. And the 18th of January 2014, 7 bullet points. We approach all the parties with that then. I'm not reading it out, so if the journalists want to do that, this is on the Facebook, and we can check whether it is true. On the surface, it's all implemented, just the law on the election not adopted. We have the Council of the City of Kiev, the Parliament. And the same way, if we don't change anything, we won't have anything. It will be our endless war among ourselves, with Putin, with our authorities. We have to change the power.
Добрый день.
So, as a representative of the Maidan, and one of the company leaders, Sotna leaders, coordinator of the self-defense from Donetsk region, I would like to say that yes, in this situation it's very difficult, and it would be unfair to have some premature conclusions, because we have what we have, as my brother said, that the changes in the election laws and the legislation we had not. But at this point, we have in the parliament some part of the people who've been to the Maidan, have been to the front line, and I've talked to many of them. I know them personally, many of them, and I hope that they will start implementing the tasks that we invested in them. And otherwise, it's all in vain. All the sacrifices. It's like my predecessors say. We do not have further clashes among ourselves. Have to solve the issues in such a way that the authorities are under control of the people, because people say state and they understand that this is an apparatus of violence or repression, but we see it as a social contract to the best interest of the population, the people, the public, and we have to make all the necessary efforts to implement that. It is not possible to do everything at once, or half a year, say, and people claim that we can do it within 6 months. I think it's all quite groundless, and we have to understand that what we should do. I am a refugee and internally displaced person. I lived since 2006 in Donbass, and a year ago, had somebody said that I was going to flee, I wouldn't have believed that person. But in this situation, we have to tuck up our sleeves and do everything necessary. And we have to understand that that we are mature, and we are fully mature.
Good afternoon. I wanted to say that I don't have too much optimism about what's happening in our country at the moment. I'm far from those who say let's make the third Maidan and so on, because all the actions that are similar to this are playing into the hands of our enemies, Putin, etc. But we have to understand that what Maidan wanted, what the Maidan stood for, regrettably has not happened now. We have replaced the authorities, and on the shoulders of Maidan, another power came to offices. It can be called a popular power. We saw Poroshenko, Klitschko, and Yatsenyuk on Maidan, but in the first turn, we were expecting that something will change in the country, that we will see reforms, that there will be not just promises but real actions. On the one hand, we have a war in the east that does hinder our officials, our president, to do everything that they would have to do. However, war is war, but it's also became a peg to which we write off everything that the authorities have not done. You know, as they say, we have the war, so you cannot criticize the power. On the other hand, if we have traitors, then we should hang them during the war. The criminals were not punished. Those who are guilty of many deaths in Maidan, in fact, except some chicanery, we haven't seen anything. We've seen a massacre in Odessa on the 2nd of May. We saw how, on video, how the policemen were selling arms to the separatists, but there were no dismissals or arrests because of this. We see that the mayor of Stakhanov gives testimony as far as Yefremov is concerned, but there are no criminal cases launched against Yefremov. Kluyev is somehow elected an MP who is an object of international sanctions and whose accounts are arrested in Austria, but he has not only got the right to be elected an MP, he also, made it to the parliament. At that same time, the Maidan people who were self-nominated candidates and vied for election were massively removed from registration by the Central Electoral Commission. Yes, there were courts then, court hearings who actually played into the hands of the Central Electoral Commission, and when the Maidan people finally got the right, some of them got the right, they won their court cases, but then they had no time to launch an election campaign. But Kluyev and other people like him have got their right to be elected within 24 hours. We have a lot of problems. Somehow the USA and Europe are launching sanctions against Russia, but what are the sanctions of Ukraine against Russia? We are talking to bandits, to terrorists. We're conducting negotiations with them. And shall we be surprised why the USA or Europe do not give us arms, why they do not help us openly? We have a lot of questions. When Mr. Poroshenko was coming to power, he said that anti-terrorist operations should last several days, not several months. And all this was just a lot of hot air. Nothing has changed. At the moment we have truce, but our guys are dying. There are no large-scale combat actions, but nevertheless, the combat takes place. Maybe this is not the active stage that used to be previously, but in fact we have war. So I just don't want to say anything about the not worthy power, about the need to change them, but I ask you, I implore you, because I would like very much our officials and first of all our president to remember on whose shoulders they came to power, that they remember hundreds of people who died, about our heavenly 100, about our fighters who die in the East at the moment, because, to say and to perform some games is one thing, but to do something real is different. Not too much time has passed, just 5 months of his presidency, but you still could do something within those 5 months. So I hope very much that we will get a different approach from our authorities. We would have liked to get another parliament, but we have changed the law on elections, and we still see those people in the parliament who shouldn't be there, and some former members of the Party of Regions are on the list of the bloc of Poroshenko. And for instance, in constituency 226, well, of course, this is normal, but this is very sad that this is happening. On the other hand, I would like to tell our guys who went through Maidan and who are now in the war in the East, and they understand that everybody is guilty. In the first place, we should understand that if we want something to get from the authorities, if we want something, we should change ourselves. Because, for instance, self-defense has a member of the self-defense anyone, the National Guardsman or the fighter from Aidar, should be first of all the defender of the motherland. And, sometimes someone can open the door with their foot because they went to war, they stood on Maidan. This is just a shame for this person. A person should be sober. They should not drive intoxicated and be guilty of road accidents where people die. We should start with ourselves. And as Vyacheslav Chernovil once said, Ukraine starts with you, with yourself. When we change ourselves, then we will be able to change the country. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Any questions to our guests? I have a question. We feel, of course, some disappointment in your words, but on the other hand, there's an understanding that changes won't happen too soon because the critical mass of the change in the awareness of people is not sufficient yet. But every one of you, could you tell us what steps should the authorities take in order to show us that they are responding to the demands of the people? For instance, should they reach some coalition agreement? I think that every one of you have their views, but please be very laconic as we don't have much time. If the question is to me, I don't have disappointment. I work round the clock. I don't have time to be disappointed. While we are talking at the moment, we are unloading the cargo of uniform to the front. My students are filming patriotic video that is being placed on the net free of charge in order to raise the combat spirit and the battle spirit in the army. Thirdly, the process that's happening in Ukraine now is an evolutionary process. A revolutionary process has happened, and now we have to see the evolution process. Shall we now organize the mass imprisonment of people who have other political views? I'd advise to first conduct a normal European-like court hearings. We have gained the victory on Maidan, and we don't have the right to use the methods of Mr. Yanukovych or the former authorities in general. We have to understand for ourselves where we are going. If we decided to choose a European way, then we have to act in a corresponding way. And these methods are democratic, court, public processes, and political responsibility during elections. People make their choice during elections. I think this is normal, and Ukraine is just in the start of this complicated way. I think that everything is going to be all right. Every time when I come to the university and talk to the young people, every time when I come to the depot storage room of my foundation, I see how people work. Every time I go to the front line and talk to the fighters, I understand that Ukrainians will win. And at the moment, we are in front of a very complicated but very interesting trip with a good ending, not even ending, but with a good continuation. So this is my personal opinion. Thanks to volunteers, we are being closed and we are being fed. Everything I have on myself was not given by the army to me, although we are a battalion of the armed forces. It was brought to us by volunteers who have brought it to us under fire. If we will just making patches on what we lack. We have to make the authorities to do this. We are not interested how the authorities will respond. If they do not respond in the right way, then many people are undergoing a very good combat preparation now. If they don't understand in the way Mr. Yanukovych did not understand this, they will end as Mr. Yanukovych ended. Or even worse, because when we were on Maidan, we didn't have arms and we did not have trained fighters. Everybody wants everything to end well, but everything may end very badly, as in Yugoslavia. And of course, Poroshenko should think, first of all, because he undertook obligations, and if he does not conduct himself adequately, then he will sit somewhere in Washington, not in Russia. I think that democratic methods are not always too effective. And if we were, for instance, breaking the law in Maidan, then Yanukovych would still have been in the office.
I would like to say that in this situation, the authorities have this priority. They have to indeed start critical changes. When people see the critical changes, then the support will be gained and we'll have the pivot, the axis to turn everything around. We cannot say, we know that from the news, from some fragments of information, that the new parliament are having this process of coalition making, but in this situation, of course, we have this sparkle of hope that the coalition will be created and become tool of public administration or state building, not some kind of puppet theater. And I would like to say that I talked to the people who are now MPs, the Maidan combatants, former Maidan combatants. They should not be split. The political ambition should not take over, right supreme, regardless of their party affiliation or being single mandate. Parliamentary actors. The parliament should be capable of performing its task, sticking to the mission. Very shortly, I also hope that the parliament will be effective. That's not without fault. There are many faults, in fact, but they will have to try to change back to Верховна Rada, the Supreme Council, not Верховна Rada, which is the supreme treason. And they have to change it back. The Ministry of Defense should dress our boys up, not buy some things in false bidding procedures for the kickbacks, overexpensive, low-quality articles. What is put on the boys is basically provided by the volunteers, and even there we have difficulties. Some bottlenecks preventing it from reaching out to the boys in the field. Thank you very much. I wish you the best of success, and let's start from ourselves. A couple of minutes, we'll have the